Oh, look what he's doing. Look what he's doing. That's sensational. Go to it, Tiger.
The Odd Couple, 1970 to 1975. 5 stars who made U.S. laugh and then left U.S. in tears. In the golden haze of 1970s television, one sitcom stood out not just for its laughter, but for its lasting cultural echo, The Odd Couple. A tale of 2 divorced men sharing an apartment in New York City. One a neat freak, the other a walking mess. Might sound simple on paper, but what unfolded over 5 seasons was a masterclass in chemistry, comedic timing, and the bittersweet human condition. Tony Randall's twitching precision clashed gloriously with Jack Klugman's rumpled indifference, and together, they captured the dysfunctional beauty of male friendship in a post-divorce. Post-idealism America. But what became of the people behind those unforgettable characters? What happened after the cameras stopped rolling, after the sitcom applause faded into silence? The truth is, many of the faces who made us laugh, the hardest carried stories that were darker, quieter, and sometimes heartbreaking. They brought joy into our living rooms, but off-screen. They've battled illness, disappointment, lost fame, and personal struggles that never made the blooper reels. Jack Klugman, the loud, lovable slob. Tony Randall, the anxious perfectionist. Al Molinaro, the wide-eyed cop. Penny Marshall, the whip-smart secretary who became a Hollywood pioneer. Carole Shelley, the charming neighbor with a Broadway heart. All gone now, leaving behind only reruns and memories. But their stories didn't end when the credits rolled. What secrets did they carry behind the studio lights? Which ones found peace? Which ones never escaped the roles they played? And how did a simple sitcom become both a launching pad and a final stage? Subscribe to the channel, because what comes next will surprise you. 1. Jack Klugman, Oscar Madison. When Jack Klugman stepped into the rumpled shoes of Oscar Madison, he didn't just play a character. He redefined the American sitcom slob. Oscar was messy, gruff, emotionally impulsive, and totally endearing. And Klugman, with his gravelly voice and worn-down charm, made sure we never forgot that beneath Oscar's beer cans and sarcasm was a heart far too big for his small New York apartment. Born in Philadelphia to Russian Jewish immigrants, Klugman's path to fame wasn't paved with privilege. He worked as a pool hustler and a meat cutter before turning to acting. After serving in World War II, he enrolled in drama school using the GI Bill alongside future greats like Charles Bronson. His early career was filled with bit parts and rejections, once even told he was too ugly for Hollywood. But he didn't back down. His face, lived in and honest, would become one of the most recognizable on television. By the time The Odd Couple came around in 1970, Klugman had already earned respect for his Emmy-winning role in The Defenders and his powerful performance in 12 Angry Men. But it was Oscar Madison that turned him into a cultural icon. Off-screen, however, Klugman was living a different story. His marriage to actress Brett Somers was filled with tension and long separations. The couple never officially divorced, even as they lived apart for decades. Klugman admitted to heavy drinking, gambling, and clashing egos behind the scenes. In the 1980s, just as his second hit series Quincy, Emmy was thriving, Klugman was diagnosed with throat cancer. He lost a vocal cord and most of his voice, but refused to quit. With a raspy whisper and a lifetime of grit, he returned to acting, not as a fallen star, but as a survivor. He died at the age of 90, leaving behind a complicated legacy, a trailblazer in dramatic TV, a comedy legend, a man who lived loudly and paid the price in silence. But when we hear Oscar shout, "I can't take it anymore, Felix," we're reminded that Jack Klugman didn't just act the role, he lived it. 2. Tony Randall, Felix Unger. If Jack Klugman was the heartbeat of The Odd Couple, then Tony Randall was its nervous system, twitchy, precise, anxious, and somehow always right. As Felix Unger, the fastidious photographer who turned every spilled crumb into a crisis, Randall brought neurotic elegance to a role that could have easily become caricature. But behind that perfect diction and those exasperated sighs was an actor far more complex than any laugh track could reveal. Tony Randall was born Arthur Leonard Rosenberg in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and from the start, he seemed destined for the stage. Educated at Northwestern and the Neighborhood Playhouse in New York, he was steeped in classical training and highbrow ambition. He adored opera, literature, and politics, and yet the role that defined him was a neat freak in a rumpled sitcom. Randall never resented it. He embraced it with the kind of commitment only a true professional could offer. Off-screen, Randall was the opposite of his uptight character. He was witty, mischievous, and known for his razor-sharp humor on late-night talk shows. He appeared on David Letterman more than 70 times, never repeating the same story twice. After The Odd Couple ended, he continued working steadily, including in the groundbreaking show Love, Sydney, where he played one of television's first openly gay protagonists, a bold move in an era still afraid of the truth. But perhaps the most surprising chapter of his life came in the final act. After the death of his first wife, Randall, already in his 70s, married a woman 50 years his junior. The tabloids buzzed, but he brushed it off with class and wit. He became a father in his late 70s, once joking that his children thought he was their grandfather, and maybe he was. He passed away at 84 after complications from heart surgery. The world lost a man of old-world charm, Broadway discipline, and sitcom immortality. Felix Unger may have feared dust and disorder, but Tony Randall faced life with open arms, unfiltered opinions, and a twinkle in his eye that never dimmed. To this day, no one adjusts a chair cushion or clears their throat quite like him. 3. Al Molinaro, Murray the Cop. In a world of punchlines and pratfalls, Al Molinaro never needed a shout. He simply showed up, blinked behind his thick glasses, delivered a line with that unmistakable nasal sincerity, and stole the scene. As Murray the Cop in The Odd Couple, he was the wide-eyed, perpetually confused but endearingly loyal friend. The one who never quite understood the chaos around him, but always showed up at the poker table anyway. Badge on his chest, heart on his sleeve. Molinaro didn't begin in Hollywood. Born in Wisconsin to Italian immigrants, he didn't even enter the acting world until middle age. Before that, he worked every kind of job imaginable, from salesman to business owner, building a modest life far removed from showbiz. Acting wasn't a dream he chased from childhood. It was something he dared to try after years of paying the bills like everyone else. And maybe that's why Murray felt so real. He wasn't just a sitcom character. He was the guy you knew, the neighbor who asked if you needed help moving, even if you didn't really want to. His big break came thanks to persistence and timing. After honing his comic instincts in small theater roles and commercials, he landed the role on The Odd Couple almost by accident, but proved irreplaceable. Murray became a fixture of the show, grounding Oscar and Felix's chaos with his bemused presence. Molinaro never overplayed the comedy. He trusted that the laughs would come from truth, not performance. After The Odd Couple, he found even greater fame as Al Delvecchio, the beloved diner owner on Happy Days. That role turned him into a generational favorite. Kids knew him. Parents knew him. He became the smiling face of frozen dinners and family sitcoms, a reminder that decency could still be funny. But behind the scenes, Molinaro stayed modest. No scandals, no diva behavior. He retired quietly, spent his later years in California, and battled Alzheimer's disease with quiet dignity. When he passed away at age 96, the world lost not a star, but a stabilizer, a presence that made everyone else on screen shine a little brighter. Al Molinaro didn't chase the spotlight. He held it steady. 4. Penny Marshall, Myrna Turner. Before she became one of the most powerful female directors in Hollywood, Penny Marshall was just Myrna, the wisecracking, gum-chewing secretary on The Odd Couple. With her Bronx accent, slouch posture, and deadpan delivery, she didn't need to force a punchline. She was the punchline. As Oscar Madison's loyal assistant, Myrna wasn't on screen as often as Felix or Oscar, but when she left a mark, sharp, quirky, and utterly unforgettable. Marshall's entry into the showbiz world wasn't through the front door. She was the kid sister of producer Gary Marshall, who helped get her early roles. But Penny was never just riding coattails. She had grit. She had presence. She had that rare comedic timing that couldn't be taught. Gary cast her as Myrna, but the industry quickly realized she could hold her own. Even as a secondary character, Penny brought a working-class authenticity to The Odd Couple that balanced the neuroses of Felix and the chaos of Oscar. After The Odd Couple, her star rose fast. She landed the role of Laverne DeFazio on Laverne and Shirley, which became one of the biggest sitcom hits of the late 1970s. Penny was no longer just the sister of a producer. She was a household name. And then, in an industry dominated by men, she did the unthinkable. She became a director. Not just any director, but a groundbreaking one. Her film Big, starring Tom Hanks, made her the first woman in history to direct a movie that grossed over $100 million. Then came A League of Their Own, a love letter to women in baseball, and a masterclass in emotional storytelling. But behind the camera, Penny battled insecurities. She hated being called the plain girl in Hollywood. She struggled with body image and once said that directing gave her control in a world that rarely gave women a voice. Her marriages didn't last. Her health began to fade in later years. And when she passed away from complications related to diabetes, it felt like a quiet final scene to a life that had been anything but small. Penny Marshall was never flashy. She was never perfect. But she was real, and in a business full of illusions, that made her revolutionary. 5. Carole Shelley, Gwendolyn Pigeon. She fluttered into The Odd Couple like a breeze through an open Manhattan window. British accent, elegant poise, a twinkle in her eye. As Gwendolyn Pigeon, Carole Shelley played one half of the quirky upstairs sisters who briefly disrupted the lonely lives of Felix and Oscar. With her co-star Monica Evans, she turned what could have been a one-note flirtation into a delightful recurring presence, injecting charm, eccentricity, and just a hint of melancholy into the heart of the series. But The Odd Couple was only a tiny sliver of Carole Shelley's remarkable career. Born in London, raised by an opera singer mother and a composer father, Shelley was never a background player. Trained for the stage, she moved to America and quickly became a fixture on Broadway, where her depth and versatility earned her a Tony Award for The Elephant Man and 2 more nominations across the decades. She wasn't just a sitcom side character. She was theatrical royalty. Despite her success, Shelley never chased the tabloid spotlight. She worked, constantly, whether in classics like Hay Fever or off-Broadway gems. She threw herself into roles with discipline and grace. Even her voice became iconic. In the world of animation, she gave life to several beloved Disney characters, from the gentle Amelia in the Aristocats to one of the slinky serpents in Robin Hood. She mastered the art of being present even when unseen. Behind the scenes, she kept her private life fiercely guarded. She married young, lost her husband early, and never remarried. Colleagues called her generous, meticulous, and wickedly funny. But unlike many of her peers, Shelley was never seduced by fame. She returned to London late in life, only to come back again to the American stage, a performer first always. When she died of cancer in 2018, the lights of several Broadway theaters dimmed in her honor. Not because she demanded it, but because she had earned it over a lifetime of truth-telling on stage, screen, and in the quiet power of a well-delivered line. In a show built on opposites, Carole Shelley brought perfect balance, refined but fearless, subtle but unforgettable. When we think of The Odd Couple, we remember the laughter, the mismatched socks, the sarcastic quips, the arguments about coasters and linguine. But behind the laugh track and the timeless punchlines were real people. Actors who lived full, complex, and often quietly heartbreaking lives. Their brilliance wasn't just in the roles they played, but in how they carried themselves when the cameras stopped rolling. Jack Klugman, the raw, unfiltered soul of Oscar, fought cancer with the same stubbornness he brought to his character. Tony Randall, the elegant, eccentric perfectionist, surprised everyone by becoming a father at 77, defying every expectation Hollywood ever placed on him. Molinaro, the gentle face of decency, found fame late and left it behind just as gracefully. Penny Marshall, a trailblazer in front of and behind the camera, turned sitcom supporting roles into the foundation of a cinematic revolution. And Carole Shelley, the consummate actress, never sought the spotlight. She simply illuminated every stage she touched. They didn't just make television. They made history. And like all great performers, they've left us with more than memories. They've left us with questions. What would Oscar and Felix be like in today's world of streaming and solitude? What would Myrna say about workplace politics now? What stories did Carole Shelley never get to tell? The Odd Couple wasn't just about friendship. It was about coexistence, about the friction between chaos and order, between freedom and structure. And maybe that's why it still resonates. Because deep down, we're all a little Oscar and a little Felix. We're all trying to make sense of the mess, with someone we love yelling from the other room about a dirty dish. So here's to the ones who made us laugh while quietly carrying their own burdens. Here's to those who made room for us in their odd little apartment on our television screens. Week after week, year after year, their stories don't end here, and neither do ours. Subscribe to the channel for more untold stories, because behind every great sitcom is a cast full of secrets, struggles, and legacies worth remembering.